Mr. President, I'm rising this evening to urge my colleagues to support the energy legislation that we hope to bring to the floor this week. We're still working through some of the possible amendments on that as well, but this is good legislation that has been on the floor before. Actually, about 6 months ago, we took this up on the Senate floor. Since that time, we've actually added about 10 bipartisan amendments to the bill, making it even stronger. But it's a bill that's good for jobs. It's good for American energy security, therefore good for our national security. It's good because it's going to save taxpayers a lot of money. And it's also good because it's a bill that actually helps to grow the environment while improving the environment. I've been working on this bill for about 3 years now with Senator Shaheen from New Hampshire. We also have other co-sponsors on both sides of the aisle, 6 Republicans and 6 Democrats who have been part of this process. We hope that we'll be able to get this legislation to the floor this week because, again, it's a good bill that deserves to be passed. When we've come to the floor before, we've talked about it. We've talked about the fact that it helps manufacturers in Ohio and around the country to take advantage of energy savings techniques, the best technology, allowing them to save more money so that they can invest more in plant and equipment and in people, adding more jobs. That's why, by the way, Mr. President, over 270 businesses and business organizations from the United States Chamber of Commerce to the National Association of Manufacturers, a lot of other trade groups, again, on kind of both sides of the political spectrum have endorsed this legislation. We've also come to the floor and talked about how provisions in this legislation will save the equivalent of taking 80 million homes off the grid by the year 2030. Cumulative energy savings, by the way, of up to $100 billion. It's called the Energy Security Industrial Competitiveness Act. And again, it makes a lot of sense. We've talked about how taxpayer dollars will be saved because we require the federal government to practice what it preaches. In other words, to make the federal government, the largest energy user in the United States, much more efficient in its own energy practices. The time for talking about this legislation, however, I think is past. It's now time to pass it. When we do, we can then work with the other body, the House of Representatives, because they've already passed significant parts of our legislation earlier this year. We can bring together the legislation we would pass here on the floor with the House legislation and send it to the President for signature. At a time when people are understandably concerned about the partisan gridlock here in the United States Senate and in Washington in general, this is an example of something we can actually get done. Again, it's been bipartisan from the start. It came out of the committee with a big vote, 18-3. It's one that we've added more bipartisan support to over the last 6 months by adding more amendments. Let's do something that will actually surprise the American people. Let's do something that will help move our country forward, create more jobs, help the environment be cleaner, also help in our energy security and therefore our national security, and save taxpayers a lot of money. Some of my colleagues on this side of the aisle are skeptical of any energy legislation. They have seen in the past that this United States Senate and the Congress has passed some proposals that are top-down proposals that impose mandates on the American people. They've also seen costly legislation that funnels subsidies to preferred industries, companies, technologies, distorting the market and ending up in what has sometimes been some very expensive failures. That is not this legislation. This legislation on energy efficiency contains no mandates. The bill is about giving people access to information they can use, not about making the American people or businesses do something. Not only does it have no mandates, it does not add to our deficits. Every authorization contained in this bill is fully offset by savings elsewhere in the budget. In fact, the reforms made in this legislation will save taxpayers a lot of money. Some of it can be scored. And there's a $10 million savings, for instance, on the mandatory side by some of the legislative changes we're making. A lot of it won't get a score because it's additional savings you're going to see by having the federal government be much more energy efficient, which saves us all money as taxpayers. Unlike some of these previous energy initiatives that were costly and I think inappropriate, this legislation relies on the market and on the states, not the federal government, to drive efficiency improvements. Mr. President, there's a reason this legislation got this strong vote out of the Energy Committee, 19-3. I said 18-3 earlier, 19-3, even stronger. It's been improved since then with the addition of these 10 bipartisan amendments. It's going to create new jobs. It's going to save money for the taxpayers. It's going to help with regard to the environment. By the way, our economy is going to be helped because we rely on affordable and reliable energy in this country. And I think it's our responsibility to do everything that's in our power to secure more affordable and more reliable energy by adopting what a lot of people talk about is an all-of-the-above energy strategy. To me, that means producing more energy. Yes, including oil, natural gas. In my own state of Ohio, we have a great opportunity there. It also includes being sure that we're using the coal resources we have, nuclear power, renewables. We should be making it easier to take advantage of these resources, to bring more of these resources to market and lower costs. But at the same time, we should be taking steps to reduce waste. This is complementary. This is not something that should be either you're for producing more energy or you're for energy efficiency. We should be for both. We should be producing more and using less. That helps grow the economy, create jobs, and makes us more competitive in the global economy that we find ourselves in. Energy efficiency, by the way, of all those energy sources, is the lowest hanging fruit. You think about it. It's the least expensive form of energy, the energy you don't end up having to use. I think this is a common sense approach that should be able to be debated here on the floor in an honest way with other energy-related amendments, and then after that process, pass here in the Senate, get over to the House, work on a compromise with the House, with their legislation, our legislation, get it to the President for signature, and actually move on with an opportunity to truly begin the process of putting in place a national strategy that has this all-of-the-above approach, producing more and using less. I look forward to working with my colleagues this week on engaging in this debate, passing this legislation, and helping the constituents that we represent on an important issue to them. Jobs, saving taxpayer money, making the environment cleaner, ensuring that America has a secure energy future, which is important to our national security.